Hey, everybody. What's happening? Brent Axe from syracuse.com, and we are here on the Syracuse Orange Football Facebook page from our friends here at syracuse.com, and we are talking to you live. Dino Babers, the head coach of the Orange, just wrapping up his podium stance after the Orange's 27-24 win over Pittsburgh. So we're going to take our turn here on Facebook Live. So we'll give everybody a minute to kind of get in here on Facebook Live. If you're seeing this, please like and share and get the word out there that we're doing this right now. If you follow the page, certainly you're seeing that, but please like and share as we go here. And what we're talking about is a 27-24 win by the Syracuse University football team over Pittsburgh, and they made us sweat this one out. But the bottom line is Syracuse is 3-3, and they are at the halfway point of the 2017 season. They are 6 games in at 3-3, and they get ready for a back end that is going to be very tough with Clemson coming here to Syracuse in the Carrier Dome on Friday night. So a short week to play one of the best teams in college football. Clemson coming off a 28-14 win today over Wake Forest. And their quarterback, Kelly Bryant, was banged up a little bit. I saw that Dabo Swinney, the head coach at Clemson, said after the game that he's fine, just kind of rolled an ankle a little bit here. So something to keep an eye on as they come in here on Friday night on a short week. But certainly Clemson is going to be a very tall mountain for Syracuse to climb. But, hey, on primetime Friday night, the whole country will be watching. If Syracuse can, punch Clemson in the nose a little bit, make that a football game, we'll see about that. But here today, the Orange beat Pittsburgh 27-24. It's the first win for Syracuse over Pittsburgh since 2012. And as I pull up the number here, yes, Pitt had won 11 of the last 12, I believe 13 of the last 15. So, look, Pitt had owned Syracuse in recent years. And, there was that crazy game last year when, wow, I still can't believe that game happened. Every time I think about it, every time it comes up, I look at that score. I'm like, this is for real, 76-61. Like, that happened. That was a thing, believe it or not. So it did, but this time around, a little less offense, 27-24, but Syracuse gets the win. So let's go over some of the good things and the bad things, and I hope that you can read the recap tomorrow on syracuse.com, my usual football recap with the sunny side, the dark side, this, that, and the other thing, and all the usual goodies. But we'll bring you some of that here, and please leave your comments as we go along here on the Facebook page. We'll read some of those as we go. Mary Ellen saying we're lucky we pulled this one out, a much-needed victory. Definitely some luck involved there at the end. Sumta said, I said it last week, win this game. They did, no doubt in my mind. Proud of these guys. Congratulations, Orange, and good luck next weekend. And Brad saying, let's go Orange. And there you go. There's the expression, right? Trust the process. And that's a good comment you have, Brad, because this is game 6 of that window where Dino Babers said, right, and he was speaking mostly about the offense here, but you can apply this to the whole team. Year 2, games 4 through 6, right? That's when we'll really see this team really kicking into gear on offense. The irony there is it's not on offense. It's on defense where this team is really kicking in. Syracuse came in as one of the best teams in college football on third down, and they left this game as one of the best teams in college football on third down. Now Pittsburgh, lights went out. Pittsburgh converted 2 big third downs at the end of this game, and they finished, 3 of 13 overall on third down. But Syracuse has proven time and again, and against this team, against NC State, LSU throughout the season, that they have been terrific on third down. So the irony is it's not the offense that's cranking and improving at the rate that Dino Babers thought. It's the defense. And they're doing it without Josh Black, who was hurt today, without Kendall Coleman, who was hurt today. Alton Robinson steps in. Paris Bennett is just unbelievable. What a season he's having. This is an all-ACC season he's putting together at linebacker. Just a terrific season. He had 14 tackles today all over the field once again. And I got to, give props where they are due. Jordan Martin, Syracuse safety, had a rough game last week against NC State. He got stiff-armed on the way for an NC State touchdown. He missed a bunch of tackles in that game. It's an awful game. He was great today. Big improvement for Jordan Martin. Remember, he hit that Pitt receiver who was close to the end zone, not to play out there. Broke a couple of passes today. He had 5 tackles on the day, forced a fumble. I mean, Jordan Martin was terrific. So, look, defense overall, Zaire Franklin, who was banged up again today but did get out there and play. The defense really won this game for Syracuse because it took the offense a while to get the engines cranking again. The irony is that, and Dino just mentioned it in his press conference, that they worked on this at practice this week, and what they wanted to do was emphasize the pass over the run to get things going again in the first half. That clearly didn't work. Syracuse, I thought they left the running game at the bus station and drove off. I mean, they just were not running the football. So much better job in the second half doing that. Dante Strickland finished the day with 81 yards on 25 carries, hard-earned yards, and Syracuse needed it, particularly in the last, 6-7 minutes of the game, because they had to burn some clock. Pittsburgh made this one interesting. Syracuse was up 27-16. Pitt scores. Quadre Allison, one-time Syracuse target at running back, runs in a rare, breakdown for the Syracuse defense in this game. Pitt converts the two-point conversion, and then Pitt is within 27-24. Remember that big penalty cluster that happened? So Dungy throws an interception, and then on the way back, there's a face mask. There's like 4 penalties on one play. So it offsets, and Syracuse gets it back again. But Pitt came very close. And that's, as we bounce back and forth between some things Syracuse did well and things they did not in this game, penalties continue to be a big, big problem for Syracuse. And it's a problem they've got to solve. Because, it was 12 penalties a week ago. It was, I think, unofficially 9 penalties in this game. And they're just dumb calls. They're just dumb procedure penalties. You had 2 offside penalties on kickoffs today. You had penalties twice in this game coming out of timeouts. I mean, these are inexcusable things to be happening 6 games into the season. I see Joe left that comment. Mental errors and dumb penalties continue to plague this team. That's definitely on the dark side, right? That's something that, look, you got Clemson this week, and you got Miami the week after that, and then you got a bye week to kind of settle back and work on those things before you get Florida State after that. You've got to clean up these penalties if you're going to be competitive at all going forward. And if you have, any sort of aspirations of at least being in the conversation for a bowl game. So that was bad, and that has got to be cleaned up, and Dino Babers would be the first person to tell you that. But that is now becoming a trend. That's a consistent problem out of this football team, and we saw it in the first half. But Pitt's a team that is bad enough that Syracuse can get away with those things and win. Eric Dungy really struggled in the first half of this game. His throws were off. I remember there was one play in particular, Ravian Pierce wide open, and he put the ball in the dirt. He wasn't connecting. They tried to go early and often to Steve Ishmael, and Pitt kind of cut him off. So this opened up an opportunity for Ravian Pierce to have a great game today. 9 catches, 99 yards, and he was the leading receiver on this team. Hallelujah, the Orange are throwing to the tight end, and you would think in this offense that emphasizes short passes and has to keep the chains moving, that the tight end would be, something that was more frequently used in this offense. It really isn't. So to see Ravian Pierce get targeted as much as he did, get the first down catches that he did, an old Paul Pasqualoni expression, yak, right? Yards after the catch, bullet ahead, the physical receiver that he is. Very encouraging sign that the Orange offense is evolving, and he found opportunities and got the ball. And, that speaks to something that happened today. Now, Steve Ishmael is the leading receiver in the country. Irv Phillips has been setting records and has been terrific this season, right? So you got to go with the hot hand, and you got to throw these guys the ball when they're open. But the encouraging thing was today, Syracuse spread the wealth today. Pierce had 9 catches for 99 yards. We mentioned Ishmael ended up with 97 yards on 5 catches. Devin Butler was big in this game, very active in the second half in particular, 7 catches for 64 yards. Irv Phillips had 8 catches for 55 yards in this game, which you would expect. But again, it was the balance there in the game, in the passing game, and that was needed for Eric Dungy because he was kind of, focusing in on certain receivers in the first half, which you want to try and do with Irv and Steve Ishmael in particular, and going with the hot hands that have been there all year. But it was encouraging to see them spread the wealth a little bit. And now Jamal Custis is getting back to getting healthy and on the field, which will give Syracuse yet another target to throw to. And they're going to need all hands on deck to be competitive over the next few weeks. I mean, look, I have no illusions about what is going to happen on Friday night. This team's going to get beat by Clemson, and I think they're going to get beat pretty bad, okay? Clemson is unbelievable. Their defense is one of the best I've seen in college football. And I know Wake Forest gave them a little bit of a push today, and Kelly Bryant was hurt in that game, but Clemson is just nasty. So Syracuse has the spotlight of a Friday night game on ESPN. The whole country will be watching because of Clemson. And let's see what you can do. Let's show people what you are. And they're going to be talking about Dino Babers and the involvement of this offense and, this team and how they're improving. So Syracuse is going to get a spotlight, and people are going to expect them to lose. So it's the same thing going into LSU, right? Open it up a little bit. Run some trick plays. Be aggressive. Go after Clemson as much as you can, as much as, frankly, you're going to lose that game because Clemson's Clemson, and they're just, there's a lot of teams in college football that just have no shot against a team like that, and Syracuse is unfortunately one of them. So that's coming up Friday. The balance on the offense we got today was great. Another thing we have to give credit to is they did start to run the football in the second half of the game. They went away from it in the first half, but boy, did they pick it up in the second half of this game. Dante Strickland, I mentioned, finished with 81 yards. And something Dino Babers said at his press conference was key. Running the ball is not these big gains. It's not the chunk yards. It's not the 8-9 yard gains. Syracuse wasn't even getting the 2, 3, 4 yard bursts that you need from your running game. They got that from Dante Strickland in the second half. Syracuse, as Dino mentioned, went away from it in the first half, tried to establish things by throwing the football. But once they went to and committed to the running game, it was big because you needed it in the second half, not only to keep Pitt off balance, but to run clock out in the fourth quarter. Even a high-paced offense has to slow it down, right? And run the ball and burn some clock, which is what Syracuse did. So credit to that running game. They needed it. This was just the second game in 6 this year that someone with the word running in their position title led the team in rushing. Eric Dungy was second. There he was with 68 yards. And look, Eric Dungy can run the ball. Eric Dungy had a big touchdown run at the end. He had a big first down run at the end. So take those plays when they come. But you got to balance that with running the football with actual running backs, and Syracuse did that today. Lenny asked a good question here in the comments on our Facebook live chat here, and he says, do you think they can win 6? I do not. I think they can win 5 because to win 6, here's what you got going the rest of the year, Lenny. So they're 3-3 now. Clemson's a loss. That's 3-4. I think Miami is a game that Syracuse can be a little more competitive in than people give them credit for this reason. They've got a young quarterback that I think this defense can get after, and going to Miami and playing in that humidity is usually a problem for teams. Syracuse is a team that's in great shape. And by the way, Pittsburgh, yet another team pulling the cramping stuff, all these phantom injuries that show up in the second half, just nonsense. Referees actually have the authority to call you out on flopping, and Pitt was doing it, much like Middle Tennessee State was doing it. You got to be careful because kids get hurt in football games. It happens, right? But the flopping was ridiculous, okay? So on that note, I'm glad that came up because Syracuse won't have trouble playing in the humidity in Miami. This is a team that's in shape and can go at pace. I'm going to mark that as a loss at 3-5. You go into your bye week, and you come out with Florida State. And Florida State has not been what we expected this year, mostly because of injury. DeAndre Francois, their quarterback, got hurt. So can Syracuse go down there and maybe have a better showing than you would think? Maybe. But to beat Florida State at Florida State, even off a bye, that's a tough sell right there. So I think Syracuse is up for 3 losses in a row. So that puts them in a 3-6 hole. Your final 3 games are Wake Forest at the Carrier Dome, Louisville at Louisville, and Boston College at the Carrier Dome. So the team you've got to upset, the team you've got to put your key on to see if Syracuse can win up is Louisville. And that's not going to be easy. Louisville, just lost to NC State on Thursday night, and who knows what they're going to be on November 18th. We've got some games to go before that, but that's your best shot. So to get to 6, where's the upset? It's not Clemson. I don't think it's Miami, though I think Syracuse has a shot. I don't think it's Florida State. It's Louisville. So if you get that upset and you take care of business against Wake Forest and BC at home, we could be talking about that. Brad makes the comment, says, open up the playbook next week, just like Syracuse did against LSU. Could not agree more. Just empty the vault. Go at them. Keep them off guard, right? Couldn't agree with you more. Steph says, you don't think the defense can keep the Clemson game at least reasonable. I guess the question would be, what's reasonable? Clemson's going to be, I would imagine, at least a 17 to 20-point favorite in this game, maybe even more. LSU was a 23-point favorite. If reasonable is cover the point spread, maybe, but it's a whole different world with Clemson. Kelly Bryant's freshman quarterback, and he hurt his ankle a little bit today, so maybe Steph, they can get after him a little bit, but Deion Kane and the running game that they have, I mean, these are the best of the best. These are the top-flight athletes in college football that are panning out. LSU has a lot of top 10 recruits. They're just young and haven't really matured yet. Clemson, speaking of defenses, the best defense you're going to see, and NC State's defense was pretty good, right, with Bradley Chubb and the great players they have on that defensive line. Wait till Syracuse goes up against Clemson. This is just a mismatch of all time. But as Brad said in his comment, open it up, razzle dazzle, Let's see a team get aggressive and have at least a respectable showing, or try to, on a Friday night at the Carrier Dome. Jerry says they look stagnant out there. Dungy makes me cringe every time he runs the ball. They were stagnant in the first half and picked up in the second half, Jerry, and I don't cringe as much with Eric Dungy. I have made my peace with Eric Dungy running the football because I think he's smarter about it. I think he's taking the plays that are there, and I understand the hesitation because of the history of injury there. But when you have a weapon, you've got to use it. And Eric Dungy running the football, if that's being able to extend plays and throw the ball by being mobile or get those first downs. I mean, we mentioned it. He had a touchdown run in this game. He had a couple of big first down runs in this game as well. He had the pitch play on that 4th and 1. So having a quarterback with mobility is a good thing. I've made my peace with it because I think he's smarter about it. I think they really studied when to slide, when to go out of bounds. It's great that you're aggressive, but I think they found a way to kind of harness that aggression that he has, if that makes any sense. I still cringe, don't get me wrong, because he's important. I mean, Zach Mahoney, God bless the guy, he dropped 61 points on Pittsburgh last year. But if this team is going to be competitive and has a shot at those 6 wins that we brought up a moment ago, they're going to need Eric Dungy at quarterback. And, I was concerned with him in the first half. Every quarterback has a couple bad days, and you just have to account for that, right? His accuracy was off. The touch on the football wasn't there, but he finally got it going. And he made that big throw to Steve Ishmael, found Ravian Pierce, used the short passing game today. I love that there was balance in the passing game today. And that's ultimately what Dino Babers wants in this offense. He wants 3, 4, 5 featured receivers. You got 2 great guys like Steve Ishmael and Irv Phillips. You got to feed them, and you got to get them the football. But to see Pierce step up and other guys get a shot today, that was big. That was big for Syracuse. So we brought up, the offense and, some of the improvements they made, although there's plenty that can be made there. The offensive line is still struggling, and they're young, and they just need reps, and they need experience. We brought up the penalties, which were bad, and the undisciplined play, which is just, I'm sorry, you got to cut back on this stuff, and that's coaching. At this point of the season, players make mistakes, and you give them 1 or 2 dumb plays a game, but there is consistency in these special teams penalties. There is consistency in the procedure penalties. You're getting penalties out of timeouts. That's coaching, 100%. Too many men on the field, and that's coaching. So that's a big, big negative mark for this team at this point because you can't be competitive. You can beat Pitt. You can get away with Pitt. You cannot win, against a Louisville or pull an upset or, be in the conversation for a team that wants to win 6 games if the undisciplined play keeps up. That's what my math could be off 1 or 2. I think it's 21 penalties in the last 2 games, and you just cannot keep that up. So you got Clemson coming in on Friday night that we've touched on a bit here a couple of times, and I know I wanted to mention this stat. How about this stat, by the way? Syracuse, a couple other notes from this game. Dino Babers is now 37-0 as a head coach when he has a lead after the 3rd quarter. And that was as close to ending as ever today with Pitt as, they pushed down in the 4th quarter and made this a competitive game. But I thought that was an interesting stat. How about the Pitt kicker? You got to give props where due. This kid drills a 56-yard field goal in this football game, which, by the way, that is the longest field goal in the history of the Carrier Dome. 56 yards, hits the crossbar, drops in there. And that surprised me Because think of all the years of controlled conditions, and, weather's never a factor, of course, that wind that you get from the, the doors opening, everybody gets whooshed out of the dome. That didn't really factor into the kicking. But Nate Trout, John Biskup, Olindo Mare, all the great kickers that Syracuse has had, Gary Anderson, right, that all went on to the National Football League. None of those guys hit a 56-yarder in their time. And, coaches are hesitant to put college kickers out there, anything really past 45, 50 yards. But I was surprised that it wasn't one of those guys, a former Syracuse kicker or some of the big names that have come through over the years, that had that record. So props to the Pitt kicker. That kid's going to be in the NFL. He's got a hell of a leg, and he's going to keep Pitt in a lot of games, especially close games like this one. I got nervous there. What'd you think of the fourth down call? 4th and 1, and Syracuse is right there. So you can either kick the field goal, get up 30-24, cover the point spread for entertainment purposes only, or go for it, hand Pitt the ball back with no timeouts. We know what Syracuse did. They handed the ball back, right? And Pitt, how about this stat? And I forget the kid's name off the top of my head. So the Pitt starting quarterback, Max Brown, got hurt. Ben DiNucci came in. There's a rule in college football that if your helmet comes off on a play, you've got to sit out the next play, right? Ben DiNucci's helmet comes off as Pitt's trying to drive up just to get in field goal range. They put their third-string quarterback out there for one play, and as I understand it, they blew his red shirt. Gone, because he had to go on the field for a play because Ben DiNucci had his helmet knocked off. Kind of a quirky thing there. Can you imagine being on the other side of that? What if Tommy DeVito, who they surely want a red shirt, had to come out for one play, and that's how he blew his red shirt in a meaningless, last-second play, and that was it. So I thought that was kind of a unique thing. Yeah, I didn't like the shuffle pass call. It, Steph, it did, who's writing in the comments here, if you're watching on Facebook Live or listening later. We do put this on a podcast, by the way, FYI, if you want to listen back to it or listen on your own time, and subscribe on iTunes to the Syracuse Sports Podcast and Syracuse Sports Recaps. Little plug there if you want to hear this in podcast form later. The shuffle pass worked throughout the game. It did not work in that instance. Pierce dropped it, and Pitt got the ball back, and Syracuse had to sweat it out. But here's what I like in general. I like that Dino Babers will go for it on 4th down. Doesn't hesitate to go for it on 4th down. 4th and 9, 4th and 4, 4th and 5. In that case, it's always a matter of what's the play call, right? I like that he goes for it on 4th down there. Too many coaches chicken out on 4th down in college football. Dino is clearly not one of those guys. I like that he is aggressive for that, but see, kids, this is why I tell you don't bet on sports, right? Because he did not kick the field goal. Syracuse did not cover whatever you had at 4.5 or the 5, and a bad beat there, for entertainment purposes only, of course, if gambling were legal. All right, that's it for me, guys. I'm going to say goodbye for now, but we will be back here Friday night, late night Friday night, baby. But we'll be back here after Syracuse and Clemson here on Facebook Live. Please read all of our coverage on syracuse.com. My recap will be out bright and early tomorrow morning. Appreciate you guys coming by and hanging with us here on Facebook Live as the Orange get a 27-24 win over Pittsburgh. Hope the rest of your weekend is fantastic. We'll talk to you again.